You are Locked On Hurricanes Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Miami on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Hurricane fans? My name is Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease. There we go, right there. Come on. All right. I think we got you. Jim Greasehaber, call me Grease. Check it out. The Miami Hurricanes bounce back with a win today, 38-10 over Syracuse at Hard Rock Stadium on homecoming day. And we are here on the Locked On Podcast Network with your Canes Postcast, making sure that you get everything that happened in today's game, the ups, the downs, the ins, the outs. It didn't look so good at the beginning of the game. Second and third quarters, domination by the Miami Hurricanes as they run their record to 7-2 on the season. Tale of two Carson Becks. The run game really wasn't there. The defense stepping up big. They should have pounded this Syracuse team. 38-10. I don't know if you're happy with this win or not, but for me, after what I've seen so far this year, I'm happy with this win, and I'll take it. I'll take it because any win's a good win right now. Although in the playoff race, you want to win bigger. You want to stomp on these teams, and Miami's going to need a lot of help to make the postseason for sure. The ACC title game is pretty much a dream right now, although a lot can happen in 4 weeks. But the Miami Hurricanes do pick up the win at home today and go to 7-2. Again, my name's Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease. This is your Canes Postcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. You heard me, the #1 sports podcast network. We are live on YouTube, and then we upload, you download, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher, Podbean, and more. And we, of course, with Roku as well. But again, 38-10 the final. We're here to break it down for you. Your Canes Postcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. And we are going right now with your Canes Postcast. Let's roll.
This is what you'll be talking about.
All right, there we are. By the seat of our pants in the beginning there, had a little bit of a scare with the technology. Not always the best. Let's get rid of this hat. And there we are. Man, the Miami Hurricanes with the win. You guys hearing me okay? Everything good? Making sure the audio's right and everything's good. You guys hearing me? Okay, there we go. Yeah, just not, look, a bad start for the Canes. Carson Beck did not start the game off well, started 7 of 12. As a matter of fact, had a bunch of drops, right? JoJo Trader had a big drop, and the game just did not start well for Miami. The game just did not start well, and then they turned it on in the second and third quarters, and it was the defense that really set the tone. I like the play call on the throwback from Malachi Toney to Carson Beck, and we've seen creative ways from Shannon Dawson. He's trying to get the ball to Malachi Toney, trying to make things happen with that young freshman and his outstanding athletic ability, all that speed and all that skill, and just unbelievable, man. Happy for the win. Very happy for the win. It's a lot better than last week after that SMU game and, of course, that Louisville game as well. But it didn't start so well. Again, the Canes, look, they're 20-3 in August, September, and October under Mario Cristobal. Now they're 4-8 in November and December. They lost to Syracuse last year. Remember, they lost their starting quarterback, the Orange did. And, Steve Angeli, he was playing really well up until that Clemson game when he got hurt. And since then, they've kind of fallen way by the wayside. 0-5 after the 3-1 start. Miami now 4-4 in their last ACC games under Mario Cristobal. Penalties, turnovers have killed them. Today, the drops, nothing from the running game again today, really, until the second half when Pringle had a touchdown run. They had Mauigoa run one in from 3 yards out late in the game. But Beck had an interception wiped out by a clear hold on the Syracuse defense, and it was on the intended receiver, JoJo Trader, as well. And really, the defense set the tone in this game. Unofficially, 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and the fumble that they forced. Keionte Scott with a 38-yard pick-6 return. And, of course, Beck with the 14-yard catch from Malachi Toney. So the Hurricanes, in 23 seconds of the second quarter, they scored 2 touchdowns. And that was where they really kind of took control of the game. And the sacks, the takeaways, huge in this game. The tackles for loss, the defensive line dominating for the Miami Hurricanes. But again, not much of a run game and a very inconsistent performance from Carson Beck, who was literally just, rattled and not looking good on the sideline, looking frustrated. And You know, the whole stadium was pretty much, I mean, I'd say not the whole stadium, but just about half empty on homecoming. And, you know, you can blame whatever you want, but it was full earlier in the season. You know what I mean? And so I put Beckel and Hyde because Beck started slowly and then he caught fire and he actually finished 18 of 24, only threw one incompletion after that 7 of 12 start. So you think about that. I mean, 11 of 12 to finish the game for Carson Beck. And you start thinking about what could have been for this team. Notre Dame's at number 10. We're at number 18 in the first playoff poll. And, you know, the strength of schedule is 28th for us, 23rd for them. And so when you think about that, you know, and you think that they're 8 spots ahead of us, look, it's because of who they lost to. They lost to us and they lost to Texas A&M, but we lost to SMU and Louisville. And by the way, Louisville's 7-1 and SMU's a 2-loss team. So they're not the worst losses in the world, although they were terrible losses for this team. Terrible losses for this team. I make no excuses. They should have won both those games easily. They gave them both away, especially SMU. But Louisville, too, no doubt about that. And we saw glimpses today of what might have been and what still could be this season from this team if they can find a way to back in. And I mean back in. They have like an 8% chance to make the playoff right now. But let's bring in your host of Locked On Canes. He's at the stadium for homecoming. He might have been the only one there. Here's Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. And of course, I kid Alex a little bit there, but the stadium was barely, maybe generously half full. But, you know, it was nice to see the Miami Hurricanes defense, albeit against an offense that has not been good at all this year. I think they should have won by a lot more today, but given the way things have gone lately, I mean, we just kind of have to be happy with a win here, and we have to be happy with what the defense did. I was just telling the people, 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, and 3 takeaways, including the pick 6 from Keionte Scott.
Yeah, and of course, had they gotten off to a faster start, they would have won this game by a lot more. You know, a lot of I just said it on radio and on a post-game short that I did that like the first quarter and a half was coma-inducing for Miami's offense. Like you just got the sense that it reminded me a lot of 2 weeks ago against Stanford. You needed an explosive play or two just to kind of spark things and to provide some juice. You know, it was this time it was Dalen Upshaw, you know, young receiver, seldom used, who breaks off a 61-yard catch and run on a receiver screen. And then that seemed to really spark something for Miami's offense, which was so important. You know, we did get a lot of creativity today, which is something that we were so lacking, Grease, as you and I have talked about a whole lot. You know, for a guy like Malachi Toney, there you can't use him enough, let alone too much. You know, he throws a touchdown pass to Carson Beck. He had a couple of runs in the game. So Toney had receptions, he had runs, he had a touchdown pass. Miami even goes to, you know, future first-round pick Francis Mauigoa on a lateral for a touchdown late in the game, which always nice to see the big man who works so hard getting into the end zone. And, you know, obviously, you know, it was unfortunate they couldn't get the cover because Syracuse gets the backdoor cover, you know, with everybody's backups on the field with seconds less, but with seconds left in the game. But just a lot. Greece, obviously, there's more good than bad this time around. You know, I wish this team could have started faster because against some of the teams that are still left on the schedule, you're going to have to do that. But as far as the way that they finished this game, I was really happy about it. You know, Jacoby Thomas had a hell of a game. He had like a trifecta. He had a sack, he had a fumble recovery, and he had an interception in the game. Keionte Scott had a pick 6 in the game. I was really happy for. I don't know if they were all over this on the TV broadcast or not, Grease, but when number 25, Jadis Richard, I think is how we say his name, when he got into the game. You know, this guy tore his ACL a year ago in the Duke game, a little more than a year ago, and just worked his way back and made some plays. You know, he also, you know, they called an unsportsmanlike roughing the passer on him that I thought was a little bit of a soft call. That's not really a great way to welcome him back to college football after all the time that he missed. And then offensively, Greece, I think a case has been made here that Girard Pringle should see a lot more playing time over these final 3 games. He was he was the most explosive running back. He was the best running back today overall. Obviously, this is a game Miami was without Mark Fletcher due to injury. We don't know for sure how long he's going to be out, but I think Girard Pringle has to play more. I thought Miami's offensive line, they started the game poorly. They finished the game well. The pass protection looked really suspect for about the first quarter and a half. But they started opening running lanes. And I think just being able to run the football kind of made it easier for them to protect Beck. So, yeah, I mean, we saw basically Greece like 2.5 quarters of some really, really good stuff. They didn't have to play a complete game to win this game, but they needed to win. You need to win, and you need to keep winning if you're going to keep yourself in that CFP conversation. And like you mentioned right before I hopped in, you're trying to backdoor your way in. But the only chance you have to do that is keep winning and earn some style points along the way.
Not many style points today, but I will say this about I put Beckel and Hyde for Carson Beck. We try to get creative with the headlines. He started 7 of 12. Drops in there for sure. Got bailed out on an interception, but it was a clear hold. Intended receiver JoJo, and then he finished. Carson Beck finishes 11 of 12. But I mean, Keelan Marion had a big game today. Marty Brown did it, running the ball a little bit, but out of the backfield had 5 catches. But Marion had 116 yards and a touchdown, big play, obviously from Beck, 60+ yards. But Alex, the first downs were pretty much even. Time of possession pretty much even. The rushing yards, they had more rushing yards than we did. The passing yards for Syracuse, as they've been all year, were abysmal. But are you ready? Are you sitting down? I don't know if you've seen this number yet, but you talk about
I'm sitting down. Lay it on me.
Penalties, man. We had an opponent with more penalties. 8 for 65 compared to 5 for 50. When's the last time this happened? 8 for 65 compared to 5 for 54. And then, of course, the 3 turnovers to none. And as much as you want to say that, the offense struggled early, and they did, a lot of drops, a big drop by JoJo Trader. But the penalties were cleaned up a lot this week, and the turnover battle was won 3-0. So not turning the ball over, not killing themselves with penalties really were a big difference in a game that was pretty much even aside from the passing yards.
And I noticed something. I'm hoping Mario might talk about it in the post game. I noticed this in the stadium in the first half. I'm on location in studio now at WQAM, but I was in the stadium for the first half and a little bit extra. Like the way Carson Beck, the cadences were noticeably different. So it's hard for me to exactly pinpoint how it was different, but it was noticeable. So it seems to be like a very deliberate adjustment that they made to cut down on the false starts. I wish we had made it like 5 games ago. I'll take it. Better late than never, right? If they can keep this cut down for the remainder of the season. But yeah, I mean, listen, again, like it wasn't the complete and utter blowout. If you'd have kept Joe Filardi from throwing a touchdown at the end of the game, but at that point it's garbage time. It is what it is, but it makes the score look less impressive for the committee, is what I'm saying. So if you could have kept that backdoor touchdown away, and if you could have started a little bit faster on offense, then we'd probably be talking about like a 48 or like 45 or 48-3 type of win instead of 38-10. But as you mentioned, man, I don't want to get like crazy and nitpicky. Like they needed a win. They needed a comfortable win. They got it today, and now you need to get ready for an NC State team next week that doesn't play a whole lot of defense, but they can score points for fun. Like if you're not careful, NC State, as they did to Georgia Tech last week, I think they put up 53 points and like 600 yards. So that's going to be a much better test for Miami's defense in a week than it was today. And the offense is going to need to be crisp, because you can't be scoreless for a quarter and a half against NC State, because they'll probably be able to put up some points. But man, I appreciate everything you're doing, Grease. I got to step out in a second and get back here on radio post game, but you mentioned Keelan Marion. I was happy to see him get a couple of explosive plays. I'm a huge fan of Girard Pringle at running back. I want to see him play more, and I want to see the team continue to play loose, right? Because it looks, early on in some of these games, they look so tight, they look so anxious on offense. They were able to hit a couple big plays, and it seemed to loosen everybody up. So they need to carry that over into the next game. And I know you're going to have a great rest of your postcast, so I will leave you to it, my friend. And thank you so much for having me, as always.
I just want to say one more thing to you. You might be able to use this on radio. Mesidor had a sack and a half and 3.5 tackles for loss. He had a beast of a game. Today it's good to see him 100% healthy out there again. But you have a great show on QAM, and enjoy the victory, Alex. Enjoy homecoming weekend with the rest of the Canes, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Thanks, man. I'll see you.
All right. That's Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. The Canes with a 38-10 win. Look, the backdoor cover by Cuse doesn't make the bettors happy, but who cares about them? We just wanted a win, right? And a win is a win right now, although the style points are important. Alex mentioned it. I mentioned it earlier. You have to blow teams out in this game. That late touchdown drive. And look, Syracuse killed themselves at the end of the first half. They take the ball right down the field after we scored 2 touchdowns in 23 seconds. One on the pick six by Keionte Scott and one on the Beck, throwback from Malachi Toney, where he had a wall of offensive linemen pinballing that one dude. You see 3 linemen block that one dude into the end zone, and you love to see him finish blocks like that. But Syracuse goes all the way down the field. They had 45 yards of offense on 5 possessions in the first half until that last drive. They go 70 yards. They get a 1st and goal. They start going backwards. They end up running the ball inexplicably with only 1 timeout left to set up a field goal, and then they never get to even kick the field goal because they fumble, and they get no points on the board. Great job by Mesidor to rip the ball out there. It was a great play by him, but inexplicable for Syracuse to do that. I thought that was a gift for the Miami Hurricanes. And then, of course, they got a field goal on that first drive when they went right down the field to start the second half, which has become commonplace against the Miami defense. And Corey Heatherman and company are going to have to work on that. And then, of course, the late touchdown. I don't care if it's the backups. I'm not as kind with that as Alex is. You're wearing that U on your helmet. You want to cover that game. More importantly, why are you resting your starters? Why are you taking them out there when you need to win these games by a certain amount of points to get to the playoffs, and you almost have no chance to get there anyway? This is your Canes postcast. I'm late for a break on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Couple of spots, got a deal to tell you about from DoorDash. It's actually a hell of a deal, and I love ordering DoorDash, and I'm sure you do too. And then we'll tell you a little bit about Supply House. Then we'll come back, give you some of the numbers from the team standpoint and individuals. Take a quick look ahead at NC State, and then we'll be out with your Canes postcast. But hey, at least it's a win this week. It isn't an epic rant like we had last week. And by the way, thank you so much for all the kind words. Thank you so much for everything you said about me last week and about me speaking the truth. And I'll always give you the truth. I don't give a damn who's lucky enough to be the head coach or the offensive coordinator at any given moment in time. I care about this you. I only care about this you, and that is it. So whether it's Mario Cristobal, whether it was Larry Coker, any of the oh, good Lord, the parade like Diaz or Golden or Mark Richt or any of those guys, Randy Shannon, it does not matter whoever's lucky enough at that point to be wearing the headsets. I care about this you. Jim Greasehaber, call me Grease, Canes postcast, class of 96, by the way. Happy homecoming if you're a Cane. At least they won this one for us, right? And, man, we have some fickle fans because nobody was in that stadium today. Wrapping it up on the other side, extremely late for a break. Keep it right here on the #1 podcast network, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. While I tell you about DoorDash, right? It is the weekend, and we know that. Not the singer, right? Not the singer. But it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on who delivered. Today's game powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. This player delivered most when it mattered most. Let's break it down. What a game for Mesidor, by the way. Had a sack and a half, 3.5 tackles for a loss. Keionte Scott had the pick six. Jacoby Thomas had an interception, had a big game today as well for the Hurricanes. Keelan Marion was outstanding. And then Carson Beck, you got to give him his credit. He was awful early in the game into the second quarter, so much so that he caught a throwback touchdown from Malachi Toney. But Beck finished 11 for his last 12, and a nice job by Girard Pringle Jr. as well for the Hurricanes today. They all delivered in a big way. And you know what? When the pressure was on, they came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, hey, these guys haven't been those guys. So it's nice to see some new names in that mix. And man, is it nice to see Mesidor back healthy. So DoorDash delivering on your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every time you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including 100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, today. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18 with DoorDash on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also get a chance to tell you about Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Like Carson Beck didn't get touched today, right? Need parts fast for a project? Hey, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tools, the 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters, and their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. So join the free Trademaster program today and score some serious perks like the Hurricanes scored 38. Well, you can get priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team, your Canes, every single day. All right, late on the break. Hey, big shots. If you're watching, Alex came in a little late and we kept him a little long. He just went on a nice little rant for us. Alex Donno, host of your Locked On Canes podcast day by day. Thank you, by the way, for making the Postcast the #1 show on the channel over the last 7 days. And thank you, those of you who also double dip and watch me on the Dolphin Squad show, which, by the way, we'll have tomorrow after the Bills game, right around 2:30, 3 o'clock. Right here on this Dolphins YouTube channel with Kyle Krabs and Jeff Scanina and myself. We have 4 of the top 10 shows in the last 28 days on that channel, all hosted by yours truly. So thank you for help making us #1 on these channels, and thank you for help making us #1 as a network all the way across the board. Live on YouTube, then we upload, you download, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher, Podbean, and you download OPP. Hell no, it's OTT. OTT, baby. Oh, I used to love Homecoming Weekend. Speaking of OPP. Anyway, OTT, we're on Roku as well. The comments, not as much of a blitz of speed as last week. Canes across the pond. Glad to see you're happier than last week, Grease. Yeah, I mean, if you weren't suicidal last week, you're not a real fan. And I mean metaphorically suicidal. Don't get all like, I don't even want to say what's going through my mind right now about the current world we live in, but don't be sensitive, all right? It was metaphorically suicidal. Is what it is, right? And no need to call off the dogs in a game like this. I don't know why they put the backups in. You have to smash fools the rest of the season to have a shot to get in. You're at 18. Look, Indiana almost lost to Penn State today. That could have really helped you. There's a couple other games going on that might affect it a little bit. And 4 weeks is a long time. You have the ACC championship. You have 5 teams ahead of you, I believe, right now in the ACC as well. All right, we're running a little bit over time here, but I want to make sure that I get the stats in. I talked to you about the first downs being about even, the time of possession being about even, the 3 turnovers to none. They actually had more penalties and yards than we did. So they outrushed us. We outpassed them by a lot. So from a team standpoint, you pretty much get the picture. But Carson Beck, 18 of 24, 247, a touchdown, no picks. Malachi Toney, 1 for 1, 14 yards, a touchdown. And then you had Pringle Jr., 7 for 55 and a touchdown on the ground. Marty Brown, 8 for 40. Jordan Lyle, 7 for 17, 32 for 124 overall as a team. Keelan Marion, 3 for 116, 1 touchdown, the 61-yarder. Upshaw had 1 for 41. Marty Brown, 5 for 23. Trader, 3 for 19, had a couple of big drops. And, oh, man, how about Malachi Toney, only 2 for 12. On the defensive side, 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. How about Mesidor, a sack and a half? Right there, leading the way. Keionte Scott had a sack, a tackle for loss, and a pick 6 in today's game. He was probably the best player on the field for the Hurricane, along with Jacoby Thomas with a big game as well. For Syracuse, who really cares what anybody did on their team? But they were awful on offense, and they're an awful offensive team. 12 for 25, 85 yards, and 2 picks, no touchdowns for Ricky Collins. But if Syracuse scores a touchdown instead of a field goal on the first drive of the second half, and they score a touchdown like they should have on that last drive of the second quarter, you're talking about a completely different game, right? Miami still wins by a couple touchdowns, but they should have smoked this team. They should not have covered Syracuse, and I still don't think that the Miami Hurricanes are that great of a team right now. I'm going to say it. I have to be honest before I get out of here. Mama told me never tell a lie, baby, and, even though I've broken that rule plenty of times in my life, I'm not going to break it right now. They should have smoked this team off the field. They're way too inconsistent. The body language isn't there. The offensive line is not dominating in the run game anymore. And those are things they can work on before NC State comes in. And look, you still have to play Pitt, and you might have you'll have a bowl game somewhere, but you still could be looking at a 4 or 5 loss season if they don't clean these things up. So there's plenty for this team to work on, plenty for the coaches to be upset about and to break down in the film room. They are not anywhere close to where they were from a confidence standpoint early in the season. And I'm not going to say that everything's well or right just because they beat a crappy Syracuse team and they didn't even cover. So I'm going to say what needs to be said on this show. I'm not affiliated with the university in any way. I don't work for the radio network. I don't want to work for the university. I know how things really work down there, and I want no part of it. I don't want anything to do with the politics. I don't want anything to do with any of that stuff. What I want to do is thank you for being here, and thank you for making us number 1 last week, and then 3 of the top 10 shows on the Dolphin Squad Show, which, by the way, comes your way tomorrow right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number 1 podcast network in America right now. Thanking you for making us your first watch or listen every day. We are now, again, the new number 1 podcast network in America. 38-10, Miami beats Syracuse 7-2. The record. We'll be with you next week after NC State. It is a 3:30 kickoff, so we'll be here right after, maybe I'd say about 6:30, 7 o'clock next week with our postcast. Until then, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget Locked On ACC, the squad with Alex Donno being a part of that. Make sure you check out Locked On Canes all week as well. And until next week, Jim Grease reminding you, as always, to keep your game tight and your mind right. And to my fellow Hurricanes, happy homecoming weekend. It is always all about this you.